The alien girl panicked. "You're supposed to be dead," but he just smiled. The emergency beacon pierced through the storm like a desperate cry for help. Dr. Zara Voss pressed her pale blue fingers against the translucent dome of the rescue shelter, watching the rain cascade down in sheets that seemed to blur the line between sky and ground. Her violet eyes, characteristic of her Etherian heritage, tracked the dark figure stumbling through the downpour. "Status report, Chief Medical Officer," came the voice of Commander Kane through her comm unit. The human military officer had been growing increasingly impatient with the search and rescue operation. "Still scanning Sector 7, Zara replied, her melodic accent carrying traces of her homeworld's crystalline atmosphere. She adjusted the collar of her form-fitting silver. A biosuit, its adaptive material responding to her elevated stress levels. The energy readings from the Prometheus incident are still interfering with our sensors." The figure in the storm grew closer, and Zara's breath caught in her throat. Even through the rain and darkness, she recognized that determined stride. The way he carried his shoulders, despite obvious exhaustion. Captain Marcus Reed had been declared dead 3 months ago, when the experimental space station Prometheus had suffered a catastrophic energy surge. Without waiting for protocol, Zara slapped the emergency release and stepped into the deluge. The rain immediately soaked through her silver hair, droplets tracing luminescent paths down her ethereal features. Marcus stumbled toward her, his damaged combat armor scarred and blackened, but his emerald eyes were unmistakably alive. "Zara," he said, his voice rough with disuse, "I found my way back to you." She reached out with trembling fingers, her biosuit sensors immediately engaging as they made contact with his face. The readings that flooded her display made her gasp audibly. "This is impossible," she whispered, staring at the data. "You should be dead. These biological signatures, they're not entirely human anymore." Marcus's tired smile widened slightly. "Missed you too, Doc." Before she could respond, his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. Zara caught him, staggering under the weight of his armored form. "Medical emergency!" she shouted into her comm as the rescue team rushed out. "Priority 1 containment protocols!" As they lifted Marcus onto a hovering stretcher, his hands suddenly gripped her wrist with surprising strength. For a moment, his eyes focused on her with startling clarity. "They're coming, Zara. What we found out there, it changed everything." "Who's coming?" she asked urgently, but Marcus had already slipped back into unconsciousness. Rain streamed down her face as she watched them carry him into the shelter, her scientific mind racing with possibilities while her heart hammered with emotions she'd suppressed for months. 3 months ago, she had watched his life signs flatline. She had signed his death certificate herself, yet here he was, alive but transformed, carrying warnings about threats she couldn't yet comprehend. The universe had just become far more complicated than any of her medical training had prepared her for. The medical bay hummed with the quiet efficiency of Etherian technology as Dr. Zara Voss studied the holographic displays surrounding Marcus's unconscious form. Dr. Harrison Webb, the elderly human physician assigned to their joint research program, stood beside her with an expression of complete bewilderment. "The cellular structure is unlike anything I've encountered in 40 years of xenobiology," Harrison murmured, manipulating the 3-dimensional scan. "These neural pathways shouldn't exist in human physiology." Zara nodded, her scientific fascination warring with deeper concerns. "The mitochondrial density has increased by nearly 300%, and these energy conduits running through his nervous system—" She gestured to shimmering threads of light visible beneath Marcus's skin. "They're definitely not human in origin." Marcus lay still on the examination platform, his combat armor replaced by medical garments that revealed the full extent of his transformation. Intricate patterns of bioluminescent traces crisscrossed his chest and arms, pulsing gently in rhythm. With his heartbeat, his core temperature registered several degrees above human normal, yet showed no signs of fever or distress. His brain activity is extraordinary, Harrison continued, adjusting the neural scanner. Pattern recognition capabilities have increased exponentially, but the underlying consciousness remains recognizably human. A soft groan interrupted their analysis. Marcus's eyes fluttered open, immediately focusing with supernatural clarity on Zara's face. "Water," he requested, his voice stronger than before. Zara quickly provided a hydration pack, helping him drink. His skin felt warm beneath her fingers, but not unpleasantly so. "Captain Reed," she said, attempting to maintain professional distance despite the racing of her dual hearts. "Can you tell us what happened to you at Prometheus Station?" Marcus slowly sat up, testing his enhanced reflexes with subtle movements. "The energy anomaly we were studying. It wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a gateway, and something came through." He looked directly at her, his green eyes now carrying flecks of golden light. "When the station began to collapse, I was trapped in the containment chamber. The entity, it didn't just kill me, it rebuilt me." "You were exposed directly to an alien intelligence?" Harrison asked, his scientific excitement barely contained. "More than exposed," Marcus replied grimly. "I was educated, shown visions of what's coming. They've been watching our species for centuries, waiting for us to develop the technology to open doorways between dimensions." Before Zara could respond, the medical bay doors hissed open. Commander Kane strode in with 2 armed security personnel, his expression coldly professional. "Captain Reed," he said with calculated neutrality, "remarkable that you survived. Your reappearance raises some interesting questions." Something in Kane's tone set Zara on edge. "Commander, he's not medically cleared for interrogation." "This is a military matter, Doctor," Kane replied, his eyes never leaving Marcus. "Captain Reed has been classified as MIA for 3 months. Standard protocol requires immediate debriefing." Marcus's posture had shifted subtly, becoming more alert. The bioluminescent patterns beneath his skin brightened slightly. "I understand protocol, Commander, but what I have to report isn't for standard channels." Kane's expression hardened. "All intelligence gathered during military operations belongs to the Alliance, Captain. My men will escort you to secure communications." "He needs medical observation," Zara interjected, stepping protectively between them. As chief medical officer of this joint operation, she outranked Kane in medical matters. At least 24 hours of monitoring before any extended questioning. The key. Attention in the room became palpable. Kane's security team shifted stance, hands moving closer to their weapons. "Dr. Voss, I strongly advise you not to obstruct military procedure. And I strongly advise you to remember that this is a joint Etherian human research mission," Zara countered, her violet eyes flashing with defiance. "Medical authority in this situation rests with me." Marcus stood slowly, his enhanced physiology evident in the fluid grace of his movement. "It's all right, Zara," he said quietly, though his voice carried undertones that made her skin tingle. "I'll speak with the commander." As he moved past her toward Kane, Marcus whispered so softly only her enhanced Etherian hearing could detect it. "Don't trust him. Check the station logs from before the incident. Authorization code Phoenix 7 Alpha." The research vessel, Starweaver, hummed through hyperspace, its Etherian crystal drives creating a symphony of harmonious vibrations that Zara found oddly comforting. She sat at the navigation console, her slender fingers dancing across the crystalline interfaces as she monitored their course toward the Andromeda research outpost. ETA 4 hours, she announced to Marcus, who stood studying the tactical displays, with an intensity that spoke of his enhanced cognitive abilities. The patterns beneath his skin pulsed more visibly now, creating an intricate network of light that seemed to respond to his thoughts. 3 days had passed since their escape from the research station, and the transformation in their relationship had been as dramatic as Marcus's physical changes. The professional distance they had maintained during their work at Prometheus had dissolved completely, replaced by a connection that transcended species barriers. "We should rest," Marcus suggested, turning from the displays. His voice carried that new harmonic quality that sent pleasant shivers through Zara's nervous system. "The next phase won't be easy." Zara nodded, rising from her seat. As she moved past him toward the ship's small rest area, Marcus's hand caught hers gently. The contact sent a cascade of warmth through her biosuit's sensors, and she watched with fascination as the patterns beneath his skin brightened in response to her touch. "Your transformation," she said softly, studying the interplay of light beneath his flesh. "It's stabilizing. The neural integration is becoming more sophisticated." "It doesn't feel like just my transformation anymore," Marcus replied, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Since we've been together, since you've been helping me understand it, it feels like it's responding to you somehow." Zara's dual hearts beat faster as she looked up into his eyes, now carrying permanent flecks of that otherworldly gold. "Etherian physiology is naturally empathic. Our nervous systems are designed to form harmonic resonances with compatible partners." "Compatible partners," Marcus repeated, a smile playing at his lips. "Is that the scientific term for what's happening between us?" Heat bloomed across Zara's pale blue skin, creating subtle color shifts that Marcus had learned to recognize as her equivalent of blushing. "The scientific term would be unprecedented interspecies psychosomatic bonding," she replied with mock seriousness. "I prefer your translation," he said, pulling her closer until they stood mere inches apart. The patterns beneath his skin were glowing steadily now, creating an aurora of soft light between them. Their first kiss had been hesitant, an exploration of differences and similarities. This one was different, deeper, more confident, carrying the weight of shared danger and growing trust. Zara felt the harmonic resonance building between them, her empathic abilities picking up the genuine affection and desire in his transformed physiology. When they parted, both slightly breathless, Zara rested her forehead against his. "This complicates our mission parameters significantly," she murmured. "Good," Marcus replied, his arms encircling her waist. "I've had enough of simple missions." A soft chime from the navigation system interrupted them. Zara reluctantly pulled away to check the display, her expression shifting to concern. "We're detecting debris ahead. Multiple ship signatures." Marcus joined her at the console, his enhanced processing abilities immediately analyzing the patterns. "Recent battle. Those are Etherian science vessels, and something else, hull configurations I don't recognize." As their ship dropped out of hyperspace, the viewscreen revealed a graveyard of twisted metal and crystalline fragments floating in the void. Among the recognizable remains of Etherian research ships were pieces of technology that seemed to bend light around them in unsettling ways. "The advanced scouts," Marcus said grimly, his eyes now glowing with that inner light that appeared when he accessed memories from his transformation. "They've already begun." Zara stared at the devastation, her scientific mind cataloging the destruction, while her heart ached for the lives lost. "We're too late to warn them." "No," Marcus said with sudden determination, his hand finding hers again. "This was just the beginning. The main force is still coming, and we have the data they need to prepare." He squeezed her hand gently. "But we need to reach the outpost first." As their vessel adjusted course toward the Andromeda research outpost, they stood together on the bridge, an impossible partnership between human and Etherian, united by circumstances that neither of their species had ever imagined possible. The Andromeda research outpost hung in space like a wounded jewel, its crystalline spires dark and lifeless against the star field. Emergency lights flickered sporadically across its surface, suggesting minimal power and possibly survivors. Life support is functioning in the central habitat ring, Zara reported, her fingers moving across the sensor array with practiced efficiency. Weak power signatures, but definitely signs of occupation. Marcus stood behind her, one hand resting on her shoulder as he studied the tactical readouts. The patterns beneath his skin had settled into a steady, purposeful glow. There's something else. Energy signatures that match what I remember from the dimensional entity. They left monitoring devices. Zara's violet eyes met his in the reflection of the console screen. Survivors or intelligence-gathering equipment. Either way, we need to dock. The approach to the station revealed the full extent of the damage. Entire sections had been precisely excised, leaving clean cuts that spoke of advanced technology rather than explosive destruction. They docked at an emergency airlock, the magnetic seals engaging with a sound that reverberated through their small vessel. I should go first, Marcus said as they prepared at the airlock. His enhanced abilities had grown stronger during their journey, and his resistance to various environmental hazards had proven remarkably effective. We go together, Zara countered firmly, checking the charge on her crystalline energy weapon. Etherian biotechnology responds to our neural signatures. You'll need me to access the station's systems. The corridor beyond the airlock was eerily quiet, lit only by emergency bioluminescent strips that created shifting patterns of blue and silver light. They moved carefully through the debris-strewn passages, Marcus's enhanced senses guiding them toward the life signs Zara had detected. The attack was surgical, Marcus observed, examining a section where the station's neural network had been carefully extracted. They weren't just destroying, they were learning. They reached the central habitat ring to find 5 Etherian survivors huddled around a makeshift barricade of equipment and furniture. The apparent leader, a male wearing the insignia of station, security, raised his weapon at their approach. "Identify yourselves," he called out, his melodic voice strained with exhaustion and suspicion. "Dr. Zara Voss, Chief Medical Officer, Prometheus Research Division," Zara replied, stepping forward with her hands visible. "We detected your life signs and came to assist." The security officer's eyes narrowed as they fell on Marcus. "You brought a human here? After what their transformed soldiers did to us?" Zara felt Marcus tense beside her, the patterns beneath his skin flickering with agitation. "What do you mean? Humans didn't attack this station, didn't they?" The security officer replied bitterly. "We monitored their approach vessels. Human life signatures, but changed, corrupted." He gestured at Marcus. "Like this one, but wrong. Unstable. The dimensional entities are using transformed humans as weapons," Marcus realized, his voice grim. "Commander Kane, he was working with them, creating soldiers from human test subjects." One of the other survivors, a female scientist, approached with a scanner trained on Marcus. "His transformation is different," she reported to her security chief. "Stable, integrated rather, than imposed." "Because I wasn't transformed by the entities directly," Marcus explained. "The dimensional gateway at Prometheus changed me, but naturally. The others were forced transformations, weapons with built-in obsolescence." The security chief finally lowered his weapon. "Show us what happened here," Zara requested. "Both our species need to understand the true nature of this threat." They gathered around a functioning console where the Etherian survivors had preserved security footage. The recordings showed the approach of what appeared to be human vessels. but the boarding parties that emerged were nightmarish distortions of human form. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, their bodies covered in chaotic patterns that hurt to look at directly. Kane called them evolved humans, the security chief explained bitterly, said they represented the future of human development and that the Etherian Confederation could either ally with their creators or be consumed like the rest. The dimensional entities are manipulating both our species, Zara concluded, her scientific mind piecing together the larger pattern. Using the threat of cosmic predators to justify creating these weapons. And Kane is just their puppet, Marcus added, his expression darkening, convinced he's saving humanity by helping create monsters. Suddenly, proximity alarms began blaring throughout the station. On the monitors, they could see a massive human dreadnought approaching, its hull bristling with weapons. Kane, Marcus, and Zara said simultaneously, "We need to transmit this evidence to both our governments before he can silence us," Zara said urgently. "Communications are still jammed," the security chief replied. "The entities left behind quantum disruptors specifically to prevent any warnings from being sent." Marcus's expression shifted, the patterns beneath his skin brightening with purpose. "Show me these disruptors." In the station's communication center, 3 pyramidal devices pulsed with eerie energy, their surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Marcus approached them carefully, his enhanced neural pathways resonating with the alien technology. "I can reprogram them," he said with growing confidence. "The base quantum signatures are similar to what was integrated into my nervous system during the transformation." As he placed his hands on the devices, the patterns beneath his skin flared brilliantly, and the pyramids began to pulse in harmony with his internal rhythms. "They're responding," Zara breathed, watching in amazement as all 3 devices synchronized. "Broadcasting now," Marcus announced, though the strain was evident in his voice. "All frequencies, all known government channels. The evidence, the footage, everything." The station shuddered as Kane's dreadnought began its attack, but Marcus held his connection to the alien devices. Around them, the transformed soldiers that had been approaching the station suddenly convulsed, their unstable enhancements breaking down as the broadcast disrupted Kane's control signals. 6 months after the events at Andromeda Outpost, the diplomatic chamber aboard the Etherian flagship Harmony's Edge buzzed with careful tension. Representatives from the Human Alliance and Etherian Confederation sat around a circular table made of living crystal that responded to the emotional states of those present with subtle color shifts. Dr. Zara Voss stood at the presentation platform, her formal attire, a flowing gown of adaptive silver that complemented her pale blue skin, marking her new role as special liaison for interspecies defense coordination. The violet of her eyes had deepened over the past months, a change that Etherian physiologists attributed to her unprecedented bonding with a transformed human. "The dimensional entity threat has been confirmed by multiple independent research teams," she reported, manipulating holographic displays that showed evidence gathered from across known space. "Their infiltration of both our governments was extensive. Commander Kane was merely one operative among dozens." Admiral Harrison of the Human Alliance leaned forward, his weathered features grave. "And these cosmic predators they warned us about? Both real and manipulated," came a familiar voice from the chamber entrance. Marcus Reed entered wearing a specially designed uniform that honored both human and Etherian traditions, its adaptive fabric shifting to accommodate the patterns of light that played beneath his skin. "The entities have been orchestrating conflicts for millennia, using external threats to guide evolutionary development." High Counselor Theos of the Etherian Confederation observed Marcus with scientific curiosity. Your condition has stabilized remarkably, Captain Reed. Marcus moved to stand beside Zara at the podium, their proximity causing his bioluminescent patterns to brighten visibly. Dr. Voss's treatment protocols were uniquely effective, he replied, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated with Etherian hearing frequencies. What he didn't mention were the countless hours they had spent together during his recovery, the way her empathic abilities had somehow guided his transformation toward stability, or the nights when her presence alone had kept his enhanced nervous system from overloading. Some things remained private, even in the midst of interstellar crisis. Which brings us to our proposal, Zara continued smoothly, her professional demeanor intact, despite the subtle way she leaned toward Marcus's warmth. The Joint Defense Initiative would establish specialized response teams to locate and neutralize remaining entity influence while developing countermeasures against both dimensional incursions and cosmic predator attacks. With Captain Reed as the cornerstone of this initiative, Admiral Harrison asked, though his tone suggested approval rather than concern. As one component, Marcus corrected. This isn't about creating super soldiers or weapons. That's the entity approach. This is about understanding their methods and developing defenses that preserve both human innovation and Etherian harmony. The discussion continued for hours, with both species gradually working through decades of careful diplomatic distance to forge new alliances. Throughout it all, Marcus and Zara presented a united front, their complementary abilities creating a bridge between human adaptability and Etherian wisdom. When the session finally adjourned with preliminary approval for their initiative, they found themselves alone in the observation lounge overlooking the joint fleet that had assembled in response to the dimensional threat. Better than expected, Zara remarked, allowing herself to relax as she gazed out at the stars. Marcus moved behind her, his arms encircling her waist as they watched human and Etherian vessels coordinating their formations. The patterns beneath. His skin brightened at the contact, a phenomenon that still amazed them both. They're learning to trust, he said quietly. Fear makes for strange partnerships. Is that what we are? Zara asked, turning in his arms to face him. A strange partnership? His smile was warm and genuine. I think we're something unprecedented, like everything else about this situation. She reached up to trace the glowing patterns along his jaw, watching them respond to her touch. Unprecedented doesn't mean impossible, just unexplored. Speaking of exploration, Marcus murmured, leaning closer, I believe we have several hours before the next strategic briefing. Perfect time for more of that cultural research you're so dedicated to. Zara's laugh was soft and musical as she pressed against him. I've identified several areas where human and Etherian approaches differ significantly, very worthy of thorough investigation. Their kiss was unhurried, a celebration of survival and growing understanding. When they parted, Zara rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his enhanced heartbeat. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. What happened to you? Marcus was silent for a moment, considering. I regret the lives lost. I regret not seeing the manipulation sooner. His arms tightened around her. But I can't regret what led me to you. This connection we've found. The patterns beneath his skin pulsed in harmony with his words, a visual confirmation that no human or Etherian could fake. Besides, he added with characteristic human optimism, if there's one thing humans excel at, it's turning impossible situations to our advantage. Humanity against all odds, Zara mused, smiling up at him. Exactly, he agreed, his expression growing more serious. Whatever the entities planned, whatever threats they've awakened, they underestimated one critical factor. What's that? That, when pushed to our limits, humans don't just survive, we evolve. And he brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. We're even stronger when we have something worth fighting for. As their lips met again, the patterns beneath Marcus's skin glowed with unprecedented brightness, casting their intertwined shadows against the observation lounge's transparent walls. Outside, the combined fleet of two species prepared for challenges yet unknown. Whatever came next, remaining entity agents, cosmic predators, or threats not yet imagined, they would face it together, an impossible partnership between human and Etherian, forged in crisis and sealed in understanding that transcended the calculated designs of ancient manipulators. And perhaps, Zara thought as she felt the harmonic resonance building between them, that was the true evolution the entities had feared. Not weapons or enhanced soldiers, but connections that created something greater than the sum of their parts.